Hello and welcome to In the Art Scene podcast, a show that unites creatives from all over the world in sharing inspiration, life stories, business knowledge, and love for art. This show is a part of the San Diego Art Directory, a nonprofit organization serving as an informational hub for all things arts and culture in San Diego County, founded by yours truly. I'm Galina Marquez, and I invite you to explore a new angle of the multifaceted world of arts and creativity. As always, the show notes will be on our website, intheartscene.com. And now let's get to the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to In the Art Scene podcast. It's been a while. Well, you probably don't know that it's been a while, but for me, it's been a while since I recorded the last episode. So I might be a little bit rusty, but nonetheless, I'm really excited about my today's guest. Her name is Kristina Lucia from New York. She is the writer and artist. She is creating amazing series of kids books, and we haven't talked about arts for children in this podcast yet. So I am really, really excited. And yes, you all know that I'm a new mom, whatever. So yes, I do have my own personal interest in this conversation. So welcome, Kristina. Thank you so much for your time. And please introduce yourself because you will do it better than I do.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. As you mentioned, I am an artist and illustrator, and also a writer as well. I've been drawing, I started mentioning this before we started recording. I started formally drawing when I was 7 years old. And I started off from day one learning all the techniques that artists learn, shading, working in multiple mediums, because the different textures, you have to work through different problem solving skills, perspective, mixing colors, color wheel, etc. The biggest part of my early training that I hold very dear to my heart is I had a teacher that understood the balance of play and discipline. She taught me discipline, and that I was always learning technique in everything I did, but there was play in that I was always able to choose my subjects. And for the first 5 years of lessons, all I wanted to do was draw animals. That's all. I remember one day crying because I thought I had to draw people. And as an
Uh-huh.
adult, I personally love drawing my nephew. I love drawing children in particular. Children in my life. But as a kid, like, I didn't want to do it. I just wanted to draw animals. And then when I hit my teens and I transferred to watercolor, which is my main love, which is my favorite medium, that's all I wanted to do was draw images of children. And I was like avidly babysitting at that point and whatnot. For the longest time, I hid my art. And I'm also a competitive Latin dancer as well. And I got back into dancing in my mid-20s, and I hid that. I hid my art. I was never far away from it. Both my degrees are in the art. I actually went back to school a second time for interior design. So I was like working all day, going to my dance lessons, coming home and drafting and doing renderings of like all of rooms I was designing, mixing colors for hours. But I was hiding it because I didn't know how to make a living. It was made
Right.
very clear to me when I left it. It was made very clear. Sorry, go.
No, I was just, I'm anticipating because
Yeah.
in what you're saying, I already have so many questions. I don't want to
Oh,
interrupt you
yeah.
but
Oh,
well,
yeah.
before, just right before we started recording, you were saying about that moment when you started a formal training, and you said that your mom brought your drawings to that art teacher who wasn't taking kids until they were 9 and you were
Yeah.
7. And I was kind of curious. Like, first of all, you are an amazingly lucky person to have that kind of teacher because
Oh,
y- y- most of the artists I know, well, I have kind of two categories of that I know. They either had a really bad teacher that scarred them for life, and then they had to come to terms with their creativity on their own through a lot of self-work, whatever. Or there are amazing teachers who are inspiring and instilling and really going with your personality. And like you said, that she saw something in you, but she also was very mindful about how to teach you and have that balance of play and discipline. So I'm really, really curious to hear that story from the beginning when I interrupted
oh,
you to start
yeah.
recording this episode.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yes. So I've always had artistic inclination. as a young child. And I actually got this question. So my marketing strategist's daughter is also an aspiring artist, and she's really amazing as well. And like has real like I'm curious to see how this young lady is going to evolve in her art career as well. And she sent me a survey and actually asked me this question. It relates to what I promise I'll get to like it's all relates. And she said, what she had one question in her survey for me was, when did you first get inspired? When did you first have your first art experience? And I said it had to be between 3 and 5 when I really clicked with Walt Disney movies, and especially the old movies because there's so much
Hmm.
intricacy. So I always had this aspiration for art. It was very clear I want to be a Walt Disney artist. I want to be a Walt Disney artist. And so my mom, for whatever reason, I don't know exactly, she took my art to this woman, Joanne Gaquan, who taught art lessons in her basement. She had formatted her basement to be a full studio space. And she showed this woman my art. And this woman didn't normally take kids, like, as you mentioned, until
Hmm.
they were 9 years old. But she looked at my art and she saw potential and said, I will take your daughter. And the reason why, for people that are listening, may say, well, wait, what's the difference between 7 and 9? It's only 2 years. The reason why she didn't take kids to 9, and it's the same thing for knitting and crochet, because I'm also a knitter and crocheter, is that when you're teaching children, it requires a lot of discipline. And you need to be able to sit still and focus and that discipline for the repetition. And I'm not saying that 7, 8 year olds can't do it, but you also don't want to stifle that playfulness because, as we mentioned before we
Yeah.
started recording,
Yeah.
I do a lot of healing work for myself based on my background. And the inner child so quickly can get embarrassed, even as a little, even when we're actual children, because we feel this need to belong. So something that we thought we may think is cool, if that friend that we want, that person that we want to be really good friends with, we it's so typical, we see that we stop wearing that color we wear, or we stop listening to that song that we like because so and so doesn't like it, and we feel this need. And so that's the thing too, is that you don't want to stifle that creativity, because as an
Yeah.
artist,
Yeah.
that's something only you can tap into. The grit,
Yeah.
Da Vinci couldn't even pull it out of us.
Yeah.
You need to pull it, you need to pull it out yourself. And so that's really why she didn't that's why she had that rule. And it's ironic because another acquaintance slash person in my network also took lessons from her, but they had to wait till they were 9. She
Yeah.
didn't take them younger.
Yeah.
And
I know
this
what
was
you Yeah, I know what
yeah.
you're referring to because I during COVID I used to have a little for the neighborhood kids. I did like a summer art camp, and they were all between 7 and 9, and that was well, first of all, it was a first experience for me to work with the children that young, and but it was the best summer of my life. I seriously, they were so it was difficult, like, I was terrified at the f like, first class, I was terrified because I had no idea what they would like, will they be interested, will they listen to me, do what I offer them to do. I also didn't wanna, put them in very tight frames. I want them to have fun with it, and I didn't know what their attention span would be like, but we ended up having so much freaking fun. It's just yeah, I love that. I love it. So yeah, I cannot wait until my son is out of the age when he is just messing the paint in his fingers and starts doing something actual. Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Because that's the thing, is you need that playtime. And,
Yeah.
honestly, as a grown woman looking back, because again, these are techniques that I've learned over and over and over again. And like even to this present day, like I'm still working on them. And that's why technically when you see kids start learning skills like this at a young age, because it takes a lifetime to get it in your system. It's like, and it's ironic because like I'll use my dancing as an example. Like I had an acquaintance that asked me, how often do you practice? I said every day. So like I was saying, with my art, these are skills that you go over and over again, like shading and symmetry and perspective. And I had an acquaintance, and my dancing is probably an easier way to use this example. I had an acquaintance ask me, well, how often do you practice? I said, well, every day. And she thought it was odd. I'm like, well, don't you walk every day? If you don't get it in your system, and like with my art, it's not as specific. Like I do have days where like I can't always draw, and like right now my fingers are itching because like I'm ready to start drawing another book, and like because I'm going to be working on a toddler series in the back end, and I'm itching to start drawing, but again, like you have to get these things in your reflexes. And that's the biggest thing. And I actually wrote this in my marketing strategist's daughter's survey, because she asked me, how do you see art more relevant? Something to the effect of, like, I'm paraphrasing, I can't remember the exact question, but it was something to the effect of, how do you see art more relevant? And I said, well, because in our society we have more awareness of self-care and inner child, art and painting do come up as a play activity. But like, and I did mention this in the survey, like where I struggle because I've been drawing all my life and I will be drawing all my life. And it's just who I am. It's so ingrained in me. It's like you have to be respectful that they're doing this to play and we're doing this with a discipline and a skill. Cause I did have like the same acquaintance, thought it was weird that I practice every day. She said, well, I'm starting to draw. I'm like, that's great. Do you want me to, do you need help? Like, I can meet you for coffee and like help show you something, you know what I mean? Because I realized, like, you do need in person for certain things. And she, but in the midst of this conversation, she led on that she was jumping right into watercolor. And I'm like, wait, what? And, the person that was teaching her or whoever was guiding her said, well, it's harder to learn. And I said, yeah, it is. But it's like this, you have to, I find I have to be careful with people because they don't realize that they're skipping the line. But then again, they're also doing it for healing reasons. They're not doing it because, like, because you and I, like, I can tell by the way you're talking and the way how you built this world for your son to, like, to be a part of it. Like, it's in our hearts and souls. Like, I mean, nothing is nothing is going to take that away from us. Like, nothing is
Yeah,
going to take
yeah,
our art away from
yeah,
us.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I really love the way you put it in terms of practice. Like you're walking every day, you're practicing every day. So yeah, it has to live in your system. I really like the way you put it in. So I have another question then. Why were you hiding all of this? I mean, it does sound to me like you are creative through and through, from moving your body and dance to writing to crocheting to drawing and painting. It's like, what? It's like how? Like I don't even physically know how to imagine how all of that can be hidden. Like, how did you appear in the world? What, like, why? It's like, just
Yeah.
why?
Well, so I grew up in a dysfunctional family and I was the scapegoat and I was abused very regularly and my art was actually brushed up, my talents and my discipline, because honestly, as well as I do, talent only gets you in the door. Like, you have to work hard. There is no, like, and so when someone, actually an acquaintance, told me, well, when my daughter was in high school, she was discovered by our teacher and she was told she was perfect. I'm like, okay, that's a bad teacher. I'm sorry. And for anyone listening, if you have an art teacher who's telling you you're perfect, like, run the other way and you're wasting your money. Like, I'm not perfect. And I've been like, the awareness that there's always work to be done. There's always a way to do it better is very, I think, is it nourishes us as artists, but also it's like what I'm learning too is like,
Yeah.
this is fine. You can release it to the world. Like, you
Yeah.
did a good job. Like,
Yeah.
let it go.
And
But
also a desire to evolve, right?
that's the thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause like I find that with like my book series, for example, like some of my earlier books are not necessarily the first ones that came out. Like one of the books coming out this year is actually the first one I illustrated. And I really thought this one and another one, I really thought, oh wait, I should go back and re-illustrate. And I thought, no, stop. You should be proud of the evolution of your work. Like, you did good work. You're just more comfortable with the character. You just see her a different way now. You see her, the friends in the book the other way. It's okay. Because also too, I feel like as an artist, especially being an adult now, you are setting an example for others. You are setting an example that the evolution is part of the beauty. It doesn't have to be perfect. And so, like, back to what you were asking me, I grew up in this family where I was labeled as a scapegoat and my art was written off as, oh, you're a great artist because your grandfather was an artist. Or it was that, oh, I didn't realize you draw. I thought just so your sibling drew. And it hurt. It hurt really badly. And as a grown woman, it was very clear that, that bullying still continued. And when I got into my healing work, because I hit a bottom moment with my mother, I realized I can't keep living this life. I need to work on it. And when I started doing my inner child work, I realized how, because I would be perfect. Like by the time I was 12 years old, I can make homemade pizza dough from scratch. And to this day, like I still make the homemade, I do all the homemade raviolis, I do the pasta, like you name it. Bing, bang, boom, it's done. Like I'm baking cookies for a party this weekend. Like I like it's just so in my system too, my baking. Like I just something I'm like, of course I can bake cookies. Why not? Like I have an hour, I can do this. And but I was raised with this mentality that even when I was perfect, there was always criticism. Like I remember being 10 years old and making an entire meal for my family. It was a chicken like covered in, I think it was cereal because I got it from a kid's cookbook. And I had rice, I had vegetables and whatnot. And my mom said, yeah, we're never doing that chicken again. It wasn't good. And but what 10, I mean, how many 10-year-olds do you know cook entire meal? I look at 10-year-olds because I read to schools and I'm like, oh my God, I was 10 years old and I was cooking a whole meal. And I look at 12-year-olds, I'm like, wait, that's how old I was when I first was like assigned pizza dough is your chore. Like that's, and that wasn't a chore. I loved doing it, but it was always this criticism. So when I started working on my inner child and realizing that who I am is not bad and that projection that my family and my loved ones are forcing on me, the scapegoat was actually a default of dysfunction. It was a default of not wanting to talk about feelings. And that's a skill that I needed to learn. And when I started doing that, I realized this is why I'm working in a corporate job and hiding my art. I'm not being my true self. Because I was saying at the water machine, people look at me like, what do you do? And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like looking at my feet and my legs and like, is the way I stand. And I'm like, oh, I'm a dancer. And they're like, oh, well, it makes sense. And then when I show people my art, they're like, wait, what? Like, why are you in a cubicle? And it was that healing work. And then I had a really bad dance injury. And I remember being on the table, being being told it's probably your Achilles. I remember tears just falling from my face because my coach was coming to town and I was so upset. And my first thought is, I'm gonna be back on the dance floor. And I was. And at this point, and so that's what started my career pivot. And I met my coach, Matilda. And one of the things we added to my pivot, in addition to networking and whatnot, is I started drawing dancers weekly, like 3 or 4 dancers a week. And I realized like I started developing my own art style, because that's the other the big thing as an artist. It's so easy to like I personally I love Pollock, and it's so easy to look at a Pollock and want to replicate that, or it's so easy to look at like I love Renoir and Monet, and it's so easy to look at it and want to replicate it because you know a start and a finish. But the reality is by starting to draw those dancers, and I was drawing my good old Walt Disney characters because I love Walt Disney. I realized like now I look back at them, I realized I was starting my own portfolio again, a portfolio that was just me. Because with my dancers, and that was actually a big thing I learned, which I feel is important to share. When I started showing people that portfolio that I was creating, that current portfolio, when I show people my dancers, they saw me. When I show people the Walt Disney drawings, they went right to Walt Disney. They weren't realizing that I can draw Sleeping Beauty, Lady and the Tramp, Bambi, Dumbo, and 101 Dalmatians on point, like from scratch. They weren't seeing that. They were seeing the branding, the marketing of the Walt Disney brand. Whereas when they saw the dancers, they saw me, they saw my art. And that was a big learning lesson for me as an artist, especially since I've been on my healing journey. And again, going back to what you said about hiding my art, I realized, no, I need to create something where I am out in front. This is me. This is what I'm capable. Even if you don't like me, all I'm asking is for you to respect me. And that was like a huge part. That was like a huge part of like my journey. And it's also a huge part of what I write about, what I draw. It's about being your true self, being who you are. Because when you're who you are, you live such a happier, fuller life.
Yeah, well, I have a follow-up question right off the bat. So it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, and we're getting into your children's book series. So from what you have shared, I assume that it is biographical because it is a series of books with the same character, and um, the names of the friends of the characters are also recurring, and the name of the main character is also, I think, not random. Is that right?
is very right. So I I actually share this in my I'm a member of Adult Children of Alcoholics, because of what my mom went through. She had a lot of the behaviors of a para-alcoholic, and there are other reasons why I'm in those rooms. And I actually share this. I feel so when I started writing my series, originally there were gonna be 4 main characters, and I would switch. And the main character originally, I thought I would name it after other people because I do have a strong fear of narcissism because my mother unfortunately suffered from it, and so I do have a very strong fear. So I was really scared about naming the main character after me.
And what's her
Bella's been
name?
my
What's her name? The
so
character.
the
The
character
character. Yeah, the
the
character.
character's name is Bella. So I Bella's been my nickname for a very long time. I'm located, as you mentioned, in New York City, and so ladies, when you're walking on the street, you get catcalled at. It's just like part of the game. It's part of being a woman. It's fine. I like the attention. As long as nothing happens, as long as nobody does anything inappropriate, we're good. But a lot of times men call me beautiful is my most common nickname. But then one of my dance coaches, because she knows I'm Italian, would call me Bella. She's like, "Oh, Bella, 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 Bella." And I have a lot of Italian friends here in New York, and they all call me Bella as well. So originally, when the character came up, I thought, oh, I'll name it after my friend's little girl because I felt inappropriate naming it after myself. And she was a baby at the time, so I felt comfortable having that freedom. But writing that first book, I realized I was writing about my mom and I. And I also realized too, I need to take ownership of my nickname. I need to take ownership of who I am. And so I joke that my friend's baby helped me realize my inner child. Like I realized like, no, it's not my friend's little girl I'm about. It's me. This is your nickname. This is who you are. And that first book, and it's in some of my other books too. So as a child of the 80s, we didn't have the towers. We had the kitchen chair. And so we would push the kitchen chair up to that counter to like play in the sink or help mom like whenever she was cooking. And that's what it is. And so yes, and Bella's Halloween costume, the mom sews her a Halloween costume. And I modeled this one illustration after my mom's sewing room. And I used to sit on the floor and play while my mom sewed. And my mom actually had a piece of my art for years over her ironing board in the illustration. I have sketches that Bella did of her costume. And then the costume, the dress, there are rosettes that pin up. You see it on the cover, so I promise I'm not spoiler alerts. It's pinned up with little rosettes. That's my communion dress. My mom sewed my communion dress, and that was something that she did. And and I realized that because my book's all about feelings and communication and whatnot, although my mom left this world before we could have a full-on healing conversation, our last words were, "I love you." And the day she passed was the day I got the piece of mail saying that my LLC was approved, and I knew it was a sign for her and my grandma because I'm Kristina Lucia because my grandma's name is Lucy Lucia. Everyone called her Lucy, but it's short for Lucia. So I was named after her, and I'm her namesake. And I swear to God, I'm a combo of my mom and grandma. Like when I'm around my male relatives, they're like, "Oh Lord, help us!" It's like two of them in one, And but yeah, it's I know, right? It's like it's good and it's bad. It can go either way. It can go really well or it can go really wrong. It's like I just have to kind of gauge the room, like how do people feel about this? But yes, I realized that the other day because my mom's birthday is in a month, and Mother's Day, I'm always good because I focus on, my sibling who's a parent, I focus on my friends who are parents. I call my mom's best friend who's a good friend to me. I make sure I check in with her. But her birthday is always like a wonky one for me. And I realized that the other day and I shared it in my meeting. I believe my book series is my mom's second chance at parenting. And it's the parent that she was striving to be. Like, I know in my heart and soul, and I know from my healing work, and she was doing the best at what she had. And I know she woke up each day wanting to be the best version of herself. And as a grown woman, I'm constantly working on this. I need to respect the decisions she made. She made decisions that she thought were right. And she's safe now. She's in a good place. Like, I know she's surrounded by relatives. I know she's having a beautiful day every day. And I know these books are like a love letter. And I can't help but feel that when I share these things, there are people that it's not just about me, it's about the other people, other men and women and out there that are looking for these answers and that are looking like how can I work through this? Like how can I identify with this? How can I create a loving home, and that's my goal. And so often than not, and I realize because we're both artists, we have leverage with this. But more often than not, when I talk to my adult friends, what I hear more often than not, I hear my mother through them. I hear them with an overly creative child, and it's that, how is my kid going to make a living? How is my kid going to figure this out? Because with art, there really isn't a solid road. There's not like with and I say this because I worked on Wall Street for almost a decade. Like there's a more clear path. There's more clear like check, check, check the boxes. And with art, there's not necessarily that. And I can't but feel even for that parent that's like, wait, this woman did it. This woman's doing it. This woman is showcasing like this can be done, because Walt Disney did this too, but unfortunately, like that brand has like evolved so much. Like it takes a lot to go back into like the early days and see like really what he was doing, but it's really no different than what I'm doing. It's that you start off with a character and you keep growing it and trying things out and all those things. So yeah, thank you for giving me that space to share all that.
Yeah,
I got a little
absolutely. I love that. I love that. And then I also wanted to make a point that a lot of the children's books that we see, like when we see them as children, it's just it's a cute story. But as we're growing up, there's a realization that all of those books are written for adults, not really for children, for adults, because
yes.
all of them are coming from some sort of deep space and exploring stories from the childhood that maybe were not addressed properly or still sitting in somewhere in the back burner and bothering us, and trying to come to terms for that and also pass it along to the new generation to avoid those situations, or
Yeah.
make something better out of it. So yeah, I love now. I mean, I I wasn't reading children's books since I was a child until I had my own child. So so it's really interesting how it all comes full circle, because now I'm reading those books to my kid, and I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, why, like, I mean, it was never part of my literacy as a young adult. But I probably should have been, because I might have started working on some of my inner issues earlier.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
knows, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it is an interesting thing. Well, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that.
No, thank you for giving me that space.
That is another clue that I got from what you were talking about. So you said that your mom was a sewer and she was obviously a homemaker, and you are exploring your relationships with your mom through this character, through writing, through illustrating, but now also through crocheting, because I saw on your website that all of the characters from your books exist as handmade crocheted stuffies, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how did it evolve to that kind of craft, fabric, like fabric art? I mean, yeah, textile art. You were a textile artist
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. So my mom's grandmother, my great grandmother, was a crocheter, and she passed away when I was 3 years old. So fortunately, I have very few memories of her, but she was very well known for her lace making and her doilies that she made. And so I actually have multiple doilies in my space that were made by her, and in my parents' house. There's still many. And my mom would always complain, no one crochets anymore, no one does this, wah, wah, wah. And so I was actually it was after we had that really bad fight that got me into therapy. And I met a man that I thought I was going to be with, and it didn't work out. And I just felt like, I need something. I want some way to meet people. And because like, and I just like, what, let me just go to crochet. Let me just like go to a crochet class. And like I picked it up really fast. And The reality is that it was ironic with the crochet because I started off like with simple patterns. And then within less than a month, I was doing intermediate, if not advanced. And I noticed that about myself, which goes back to what we were talking about when I was 7 and was learning shading and perspective and symmetry. And
Yeah.
like, I do well when I'm challenged. Like I do better. Like I'm not, it's ironic because like when I cook meals, like for example, for Christmas, like we all divvy up because I'm from an Italian family, we have the fish feast on Christmas Eve. And originally I was assigned the fish. I don't like to cook fish. I love eating it. I don't like cooking it because you have to follow the rules. Otherwise, it won't taste right. And my brother-in-law is great at it. So like I had a conversation with him and my sister, and I said, listen, can I do the ravioli? I'm much better when I create. I'm much better when it's from scratch. Like, and I do. That's just me. And like it's just this awareness of your boundaries. And same thing with my crochet. And the irony is, like I was saying about my drawings. So when I was injured, before I got injured, I started crocheting in 2017, injured in 2018. So within the first year of crocheting, like I was creating all these different things. And ironically, the first complex blanket I made was the blanket I gave to my friend's little girl, and the day I gave it to her was the day they asked me to be her godparent.
Oh.
And it was just this beautiful, yeah, it was just this beautiful, like it was from the Christmas tree. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so then I was injured because anyone who knows with an Achilles injury, you can't put weight on it. So here I am, this overly active person, this overly scheduled and busy person. I'm stuck on my sofa and like, what am I going to do? And I'm an avid reader. So like, I always have a book, but I was like, well, let me finish this blanket. And my coworker and friend, he and his wife announced their second baby. They came over to visit me, said, we're expecting our second. I'm like, oh my God, it's so great. I have to create something for you. And so while I was on the sofa with this stupid boot on, like I was just crocheting loveys. And it was ironic because for Moses and Frida's little girl, their older daughter, I made my first stuffy for her as a big sister present. And
Ah.
that's how I started making stuffies. And then my goddaughter, I don't know about now because she's about to be 9, but when she was little, she was a big Minnie fan. So then I started making Minnie Mouse and like creating patterns for that. And so when I got laid off in 2019, I had this portfolio of crochet characters. And I had a former friend turn to me and say, there is a business here. And so that actually sparked me to start like that led to that moment where I declare myself an entrepreneur. And people told me I was crazy to go in the start a business. I'm like, no, the characters are going to lead me to an answer. They may go away, but I need to pursue this. And that's how I started blogging. And then I realized I was a writer. And when I realized I was a writer and supposed to write this series, it was that piece of the puzzle that was missing. All of a sudden it linked all my art and my baking and the crochet. And then even after I made that link, I started knitting and I'm an avid knitter as well. And I love being able to do both because it's like being an artist too. Like I work in multiple mediums, like with my art with my fashion drawings and my dancers. I love working in ink because I love cross hatch and pointillism for that. But then when I draw my nephew, I like pencil because of the contours of the face. It's just easier to shade. I can get more into it. But then with my illustrations, I do watercolor and I go back with like pen to like enunciate certain lines because I like that softness and that coolness. So it's like the same thing with the knit and crochet. And the beauty too about being able to create my own characters because it's been an interesting process for me, and I'm still in the middle of it. I actually am in the process of manufacturing the main character, Bella, as a stuffy.
Mhm.
But because I have the crochet version, and the crochet version will never go away. Don't worry, everybody, they're still gonna be there. But, when you're building a business, you need to be realistic. You need to be able to be accessible and whatnot. And the fact that I can create my character and show people exactly what I want. And the other thing too is because I can draw, I do draw technical drawings of my stuffies, and I'm able to like, and then I have my sewing measuring tape where like I my tape measure where I measure things out. So that's the other leverage about being an artist and being able to draw and work in all these mediums is that are able to go directly to people and say, no, this is what I want. This is what it is. And like when they give you a hard time about something, at least it like yes, I'm still getting a tech pack from the factory, don't get me wrong, but it's nice to know that I can draw this and have this in the back end for me and have it as a reference tool to educate and help others in the long run too. Because again, I feel like because we can draw, we do have this, it's like this secret key that we we
Yeah.
can be like, well, okay,
Yeah.
well, I can do that. I mean, well, I can just do it myself. Like it is, and I do take it for granted because I'm so used to doing it. And and funny story I'll share really fast is my editor asked me, he's like, "What don't you do?" I'm like, "I don't put together toys." So my nephew's at the age of 3, and I imagine your son too, where you know how everything requires assembly. And
Uh-huh.
I don't put together toys. Like everyone else puts together the kitchen set, and he literally handed me this race car on Christmas Day. It's like, "Here." And I look at it, I'm like, I don't put together toys. And luckily the friend next to me is an engineer and he has a screwdriver in his pocket. I'm like, this is your job. I don't put together toys. I play with them. I don't put them together. Like I create them and play with them. I don't do this whole screwdriver thing. And like it wasn't even a screw. I mean, I don't know what it was. It was something. I don't know I don't know what tools are, but
I'm the opposite. I'm the one with the screwdriver in the
oh,
house.
my sister too. I'm like, yeah, I don't do this. Like someone asked me once, I came out, true story. I was injured and I had an acquaintance come over to help me with something. He said, "Do you have a Phillips head?" And looked at them, I'm like, "Do I look like the kind of woman who knows what a Phillips head is?" Like, do I look like that kind of woman? If it has anything to do with my shoe, my brushes, or my KitchenAid mixer, I don't know what you're talking about. The world is a safer place with me, and, like, I go into Home Depot and Low safer listen to me, is a safer place without me and power tools, and I swear to God, when I go into Home Depot or Lowe's, they look at me like, "Are you okay, ma'am?" I'm like, "Stay nearby. No, stay nearby." And I'm not even being silly, I'm really serious. I'm like, "Yeah, I probably will need you in, like, 5 seconds. I don't think I'm on the right aisle." Like, I am so lost, but, like, yeah, but then I had a coworker
Uh,
ask me, we were going to Saks because she was getting married, and so they were having a dress sale, a bridal dress sale, and so I said, "Well, do you want to go look and, like, get some ideas?" And we were leaving the office, and she said, "Do you know how to get to Saks?" I'm like, "Oh, sweetie, I can be blindfolded in the Sahara and find my way to Saks, but, like, a Home Depot, I'm, like, lost beyond belief." So that's my little side story about me, and I don't put things together. I don't.
I I would be the opposite. Like if my friend were getting married, I was like, "Hey, let's go to Home Depot. I'll build you an arch or something."
Like, yeah, whole like, the hoopah, like, I'll build you the
Yeah.
chapel, right? Yeah, and
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh, that's great. I'll draw what I want. I can draw. I can draw the plans," and I've actually done that with family members who are because 'cause I'm from a family of teachers and engineers and lawyers, and so something that I have done in the past, and, one relative, when we did have a good relationship, I wanted to make a sled, a sled, and, it's actually still in my father's house. It still comes out every Christmas. I was a teenager, and I drew what I wanted, and they created for me, and then they primed it and gave it, like, the overcoat, and then I hand drew and hand painted a Father Christmas with the toy sack, and then I did, like, the holly and ivy leaves. So that's the thing too, is, like, and that's the other beauty too, I feel like in the healing process, especially as an artist, vulnerability is so important. You're not weak by saying, this is not my strength. That's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength, of being able to say, this is my boundary. This is my limits. Like this, I feel confident I can do this. And that's how I feel we're really able to truly collaborate is to understand, wait, you have the strength for this. I have the strength for this. Like, you go this way, I go that way, and then we'll meet in the middle. And, it's really powerful, I
Yeah.
mean? And I feel like too, as an artist too, that vulnerability, being able to ask questions. Cause like part of the thing too, as an artist, you have to be able to sell yourself. And again, like art, there's no guidebook of marketing. I mean, yes, you can take courses, yes, you can do it, but once you learn those skills, it's like with your art, you have to practice it and you have to figure out what's right for you. Cause like that beautiful painting behind you, I'm seeing like the splatter. Like it's beautiful. I love it. Yeah, because I'm seeing the splatter. And let's face it, we can study Pollock for 100 years and our we're all different. And it's a matter of learning, okay, this is how I splatter. And especially as a dancer, like there are certain things, and even like I've had knitters tell me, like, oh, you're knitting weird. I'm like, well, fine, like leave me alone. But then I've had other a family friend of mine, like, and she's amazing. She is such an amazing artist too. And she's complimented me multiple times on my crochet and knit. She said, your stitches are so even. Like, how do you do that? And I said, I don't know. It's just like in my system. Like, it's just something, but I take it as a huge compliment because I am a perfectionist. I am an overachiever. So, but yeah, it's that vulnerability is like a huge key
Yeah.
point for growth, I feel, and
Yeah.
curiosity.
Yeah. 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 And I can talk about those problems that artists are facing in society, emotional, financial problems, and oh my God. But I think you guys can go and listen to all the previous episodes because we touch on that topic every single time. The imposter syndrome, like all your background, the society that tells you that yes, art is important, but you shouldn't be doing this because it's not going to get you anywhere. So yeah, it's really
Yeah.
difficult, and then you're kind of left alone to figure that whole thing out. Thank goodness for therapy.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah.
Thank goodness for different ways we can go and learn about ourselves and make ourselves feel better and get to terms to with who we are and what we do
Yeah.
and with all our imperfections and weirdnesses and the ways we do things that other people find unusual or weird. It's yeah, that's part
Yeah.
of it. That's part of the
Yeah.
journey.
Well, one thing that I wanted to share that you
Uh-huh.
mentioned now about like society telling us, I find the biggest thing that I've learned when I discovered I was a writer, and this is something about like especially we see it with children's series, there has to be a mission. If a lot of times we see children's books and they're cute, but it's like, okay, that's cute, but what more? The ones that really make it, there's not only a pattern and a strategy, there's also a mission. And I'm not a comedian. I'm not a comedic writer, but I am very fascinated by the strategies of comedy when I watch like late night or I listen to interviews or even when I watch sitcoms that I personally enjoy and you start picking up on the rhythms. And I actually read John Stamos's memoir and I got to meet him too, and he was absolutely amazing. But he says a lot of things in the memoir which I found were very beneficial. And I feel like when you understand you have a mission and when you understand the certain elements need to be there because the reality is as artists we are a great source of problem solving because we can create things from scratch.
Yeah.
And like for example, like yesterday what I was doing is I was running around the Upper East Side approaching restaurants and coffee shops and asking them, would you be interested in having a coloring placemat? Is that something you're looking for? Because I really believe strongly that's a big part that's going to be a big part of my marketing strategy is working out deals with restaurants where they purchase a placemat design that I created, a Bella of her friends and different nuances, of course, with their brand. But again, a way for me to get in front of people in an organic, welcoming way. But at the same time, I'm walking into this, I'm solving a problem for them. Do you have a lot of families? Are you looking for entertainment? Are you looking for something extra for the kids? And that's the biggest thing. And again, there's no written path and it's different. And I do get a lot of no's. I do get a lot, even from schools, I get a lot of will let you knows. And it is hurtful. But then again, what
Hmm.
buoys us, I feel, and I did a reading a couple of weeks ago, and I'm working on getting back into school again. With a teacher who was the main contact that got me hurt. It was one of the parents in that classroom that got me there. This woman came up to me and said, "You have a magic about you. I would love to have you back. I really would want to have you back with the kids." And the kids get me. The kids do get my energy. But I feel like that's a big thing as an artist is in all the art that I do is I'm solving a problem. And like that's why too I realize like I will always have the crochet characters. That's very important to me. That's very like big part of me. But I realize like I do have to start. this scary journey of manufacturing. And it's not as scary as I thought it would be, but I realized that because if I want to grow awareness and I want to get out there and whatnot, I need to do that because again, I'm looking to solve a problem. You can't force something on somebody. And as artists, we have this great gift of bringing joy to people, of touching people. And like, but again, I get it's hard. Like, I'm not saying it's easy. I don't want to like say, oh, it's so easy because it's not. But if you're willing to get out there and willing to listen and hear, okay, well, what are you looking for? What can I offer you? Because I do have this I'll give another example. So, like I mentioned before recording, my brother-in-law loves the Little Blue Truck, and so by default, my nephew
Mhm.
loves it. His my nephew's first year of life, I literally his first couple. He's only 3, but I swear to God, I could buy stocks in the Little Blue Truck. Like I have bought every book imaginable. Like I am that aunt. But for my brother-in-law's first Father's Day, I bought him Goodnight Little Blue Truck, and I wrote a note saying, "Wishing you and Caleb many happy reads." And my sister showed me, I made a post of my brother-in-law and nephew reading it, and this point my nephew could sit up, which was really magical to see. And she said in the caption, "You should have seen his face," and AKA, I mean Josh, not Caleb. And Josh is my brother-in-law, but it was really sweet because again, it was about I walked into that because corduroy is my favorite. I love corduroy. I love Hunter Caterpillar too. Luckily, my brother also does, so I've given them a lot of those. But the reality, and I love Little Blue Truck too, don't get me wrong, but the Little Blue Truck I discovered from them, and I put their needs and their love first because it was about them. And fast forward a couple months later for Caleb's first birthday, I'd already made him like a hungry caterpillar stuffy and some other things and a giraffe stuffy and whatnot, and books I sent early so that they could enjoy it. But then I got this urge, and I swear it was my mother. And I got this urge to make them a blanket because I hadn't made them a blanket yet. And I started researching, is there a Little Blue Truck blanket out there that I like a pattern? And I couldn't find one. So I bought the book and I studied the book and I found a corner to corner pattern. So I literally designed my own Little Blue Truck blanket for my nephew with the full applique of the cover and beep, beep, beep crocheted on the top. And again, it came from a space of, I want this. But then the flip side of it is everyone saw it and whole room of parents who are all the Little Truck fans are
Mhm.
like, "Well, I
Mhm.
want it, I want it." And they said, "Well, how much?" And I gave a number off the top of my head, and the friend said, "Well, that's way too much for me." I'm like, "I get it, but I'm not making it to mass produce it. I'm making it because this is a gift for my nephew. This is a gift for my sister and her husband, something for them." But again, it's like that focusing on like what they want, and that I realize that it is a gift. It is a gift that I was able to do that for my family, and that's something that I treasure. And so that's what I take when I go into businesses and in a different way. It's like, how can I fix a problem for them? How can I help them? Because I do have this gift and I have this gift to share. And, and I can negotiate it so that I'm met halfway. And that's the other beauty of it.
Yeah, no, I strongly believe that artists will solve all the world problems.
Oh, we will,
We will,
because we,
yeah,
we think
we
out the
will.
box.
Just give us a carte blanche and we will do it. We'll fix everything, right? So we are
Oh,
at the
yeah,
top of the hour. I really wanted to give you a chance to tell our listeners where to find you, where to find Bella, where to get the books and stuffies, and when your first manufactured stuffy is going to be coming out. And it
yeah.
probably will be before this episode is live. So we'll see. If it is, then we will put the links in the show notes. So, guys,
Yeah.
again, go to intheartscene.com. Everything is going to be in the show notes. Make sure that you are checking the post for this episode so you know what Kristina Lucia is talking about, where to find her. Go ahead,
Absolutely. Yeah.
plug away.
Oh, it sounds great. Thank you so much for this space to do that. So my website is www.kristinalucia.com. And everything is there, the crocheted stuffies, my blogs, my books, et cetera, et cetera. I also create coloring books as well. I have
Mhm.
to actually update my website to get the coloring books there. I'm also on Amazon, so I can give you my Amazon like author page link where all the coloring books and the books are. The manufactured stuffy. So right now where I am, because if it's right now, if things go well, if things are still on track, I'm guessing I'll have it on Amazon in August at the earliest. The reason why I say that is because this is I went back for a second sample to be made because the reality is that I did enough like what going to toy stores and talking to people to realize like Jellycat is ruling the world right now. So like I'm striving to get this stuff Bella. And the crochet character I create is very cuddly. She's organic cotton. So like I need the stuffy to do that, but also to the world just wants Jellycat stuffies, and so I am striving to reach that quality. So if this stuffy looks good and everything goes well, my guess is August at the earliest, possibly. So ideally the Christmas rush, but if it's not ready by then, it's because I'm striving to get the best quality for you. Like I really everything I do, I want to be the highest level I can provide for you in that moment. And I will keep going, even if it takes me a year or 2 to get to it, I will keep going to do that because to me, it's more important to provide quality than to just like create something and like, because that's not how I create. If you look at anyone who's looked at my art knows, like I put a lot of time and effort in everything I do, and I can't do that.
So yeah, so if it's not if the link is not in the show notes, then you guys just have to follow us. So subscribe to the podcast, follow us on Instagram, follow Kristina Lucia on Instagram. Do you have a
Yes.
mailing list? S-
I do, yes, and I
Yeah,
actually have a coloring drawing for your audience as well. I always, like,
yeah,
have coloring drawings and all sorts of printables, so I will make sure to get a link for you guys, and I do
yeah.
send about 3 emails a month. I like to make sure I'm staying in touch and being relevant and whatnot, and I'll share this here now, like, it's in the works right now, I'm figuring out how to do it. Like, I am also developing my YouTube channel.
Oh,
I'm looking for ways that I can animate my illustrations and add voiceover and create some kind of a theme song. So that's like another big thing I'm working on because I want to create something that you guys can enjoy with your kiddos and that you guys
okay.
can be enjoying. So all these different
Okay,
things
so
are happening.
it's the end of the episode, and we're now discovering that we're not only having a producer of new Beanie Babies with us, but also a new Walt Disney. So
Yeah,
your lifelong dream is coming true. Why not?
it is, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know. It's like I said as a little girl, I want to do is draw animals. And what do? I draw animals 90% of the time.
Right? Right? So yes, you guys sign up. Put your name on the list. So you are in the know when all that awesome stuff is coming out because Christina will announce the new stuffies. Uh, uh, so look forward to it before Christmas. I'll probably get one for Gregory for sure. If it's out, I'll get one. And yeah, and we're looking forward to checking out your animation. And when you figure that out, I will be happy
Yeah.
to have you back on a podcast and talk about that because
Oh,
we
thank
haven't
you.
talked about animations yet. And
Yeah.
that's such a great creative process when you are, you are focusing all of that, all the um creative avenues around the same thing that you are passionate about. So you have the same characters and you're just putting them on the journey from being illustrated animals in the children's book to being physical toys to being animated characters. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Uh, I wish they will. I mean, will they probably start singing or something else?
Probably, yeah, I
Yeah,
was thinking that
yeah.
too. I was thinking that. I was like, they probably are gonna have songs. And then I'm like, a dance number. One singular sensation.
All right.
I love a chorus line. That's one of my faves.
Right. Thank you so much, Christina, for your time. That was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I always love it. And I do really love that feeling of, this is not the typical episode because the typical episode is about, you know, the journey of the fine artist in the big art world. This is more of, like that's closer to me, at least right now. Being a mom of a toddler, I
Yeah.
really enjoy talking to a fellow artist who is working on all of those things that are close to home and close to family, close to your inner child or your actual child, right? So
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. So you made my day. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you so much. Oh, I'm so touched. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the space to share. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, I will stop this recording. You guys check out intheartscene.com for all the show notes, the links and references. Go follow Kristina, put your name in the email list, and I will see you again in the art scene. Thanks for listening to this episode of In the Art Scene. Show us some love by sharing it with your friends and giving it a raving 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcasts. By doing this, you're supporting my nonprofit organization called San Diego Art Directory on its mission to make San Diego a new cultural destination. To learn more, visit sandiegoartdirectory.com and intheartscene.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Have an inspiring day. I will see you next time in the art scene.